Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Is there truly a place where all becomes one? If so, how do we get there? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to uncover the power of awakening is John Burgos. John is an ascension guide and internationally recognized public speaker who thrives when collaborating with provocative spiritual leaders, bringing light to the shared power of the awakened collective consciousness. Having been initiated into connecting with higher states of awareness and realms beyond the physical, John's call quickly became to be one of service. His website, johnburgos.com. John, thank you for joining us on Mission Evolution.
That's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, what's your educational background, John?
Oh, I'm a college dropout as far as that's concerned. I was way too creative in college, and the boxes just didn't suit me, even though I so saw the value of what was possible. But the entrepreneurial heart and the trying on different things was really what was guiding my personality and my spirit.
So let's start by unpacking your bio just a little bit. It says you've been initiated into connecting with higher states of awareness. Where did you receive the initiation?
The initiations came through a lot of different teachers that I had worked with, mentors. It came in the form of dream states that I took myself into on purpose. It came through initiations with prolonged experiences with plant medicines, but very intentional. It wasn't just going in to see what would happen. It would be very ceremoniously, with a lot of purpose and with a framework of how I was going to be in those particular situations to see what was going to evolve and facilitate something expanding in my consciousness.
So you say ceremonial. What form of ceremony?
Well, there's lots of different ceremonies that we practice, and there has been ceremonies with communicating with different ascended beings, and they're very old traditions. They're a combination of Buddhic traditions with Eastern traditions, also bringing into account my Catholic upbringing as well. And there's a merging of those initiations and ceremonies that come through when we're in particular practices. Some of those initiations also came through psychedelic experiences, again, going deep in the jungle and being initiated by the Shipibo tribe in Peru, being initiated by other tribes in Brazil as well, and tapping into the wisdom in those states by those who have been guiding through generations for people to have that type of vision and that type of acceleration in their connection to spirit.
Gotcha. So, which spiritual leaders have you collaborated with?
Oh gosh, it's probably not anyone that our audience would be aware of. A lot of them have been inconspicuous. They tend to be more focused on working with just those that they're called to in resonance, in very small containers. Right now, I'm working with Gaetana Yantel and an awakening that is an initiation into, again, this Buddhic and Eastern path. That's been quite profound. A lot of it is based on Elizabeth Proctor's work and connected with ascended masters and guides, and initiating a pathway into unity consciousness. I have worked with Sandra Walter, who's become a dear friend in different initiations and following her work. I was initially initiated by a woman named Dawn Clark, who I like to say broke the dam open into what was possible. I originally approached her to work as a business consultant for me. She had worked with high-level CEOs for Starbucks, NBC Entertainment, for Nike, and his impressive background. And after a few sessions of us working together on a business platform, she quickly asked me if I wanted to work in these other realms. And these other realms happen to be the spiritual and the esoteric realms. And when that became available, like I said, I like to say the dam broke open. Um, we went through particular initiations, I'll call them again, through forgiveness processes, processes to rewire my limiting beliefs. So, working with my neurochemistry, but also connecting to something outside of what we see here in the linear, what we would call the 3D. And that was a profound experience for me. Um,
So, as I understand it, if you're going to get an initiation, the person that's giving you the initiation has to also have been initiated.
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
they have to know where they're guiding you for sure.
So where did the people that you worked with mostly get their initiations from?
Working through different methodologies. Again, Dawn was very connected in the way very psychic and intuitive, and a lot of what she received, she translated into processes that we can walk from A to Z to really awaken something within us. She was extremely intelligent. I think she was a part of Mensa, if I'm correct. So very high IQ. And she was a school teacher trained as well. But she had a capacity of translating this information that she received to put together processes to help people overcome limiting beliefs, to heal core wounds of trauma, and to get into parts of where we have a reassociation of identities that were lost during traumatic situations. And so what it would bring back action taking ability. And
So
when we have that, everything can change.
so do you get information from esoteric sources as well?
Absolutely. All the time.
Okay, so how can you tell that the information is reliable?
Um, practice, practice and really playing with it. It's, I've been I grew up being very intuitive. I had a connection into guides that would illuminate information to me, whether it was a dream that someone was going to pass away in a couple of weeks, or whether it was hearing that the marriage that I just entered into was going to end in 18 years. All of those things would come to fruition. So the proof over the years, I'm 57 years old, and I've been deep specifically in this work since I was in my late 30s. Um, the proof's been in the pudding, and listening and following the guidance, and being aware of what emerges. But it's beyond physical, it's beyond just a psychic awareness. It's really about following a path that's being laid out, having a relationship with it, and witnessing how things unfold, even though they've been shared a long time ago, and becoming aware that something has been articulated for us. There is a blueprint that allows us to expand on our path that our soul is really on of awakening.
So do you feel like this blueprint varies from individual to individual, I would expect?
Absolutely, yes.
And where does one access this blueprint?
That's where we do the deep inner work. And that blueprint is something that is unique to every person, just like our fingerprint is. And to access that, what we have to do is we have to delayer a lot of conditioning of we're not enough. We have to have a certain type of life that in order to survive, we have to have X, Y, and Z, that I
And
have
this
to follow my parents' pattern. And again, we have to unlayer all of those things so that we can really get to a place of understanding who we are.
and then this brings me back to my where are you getting your information? Because we all get information from somewhere, but it may not be the information that we want to take seriously, like the programming of our past, say, for instance.
Mhm.
How can you start to discern whether you're listening to your true inner guidance or true guidance and your conditioning or your conditioning?
Yeah, there's a feeling tone that comes in. There's this feeling of authenticity. For example, Gwilda, when you feel when someone's authentically loving you, there's a resonance, there's an integrity to that feeling and to that exchange. Well, we can learn to start receiving that within ourselves as well. We can tell when someone's not being authentic also and pushing back. And so we're extremely empathic, all of us. It's just we're learning how to strengthen that empathic ability so we can discern the information that's coming in and follow what's in integrity for us.
Well, we're just about out of time in this segment, but have you, and I probably will go into the other side on this one, but have you ever had information come to you that you recognized later wasn't reliable?
I'd have to look at that. I think I've been presented choice points as to do you want to go here? Do you want to go here? And I find that the connection that I have has always been benevolent. I understand that some people, and I do this on my show when I discern what type of speakers to have on. It's where is their source of their information coming from? What are they navigating, and where they're guiding their audience and why? And I can honestly say that I've felt like I've been very connected to a benevolent source of wisdom and information that's been guiding me. And I'm sober enough to pause, to ask questions, to feel into what's true, to feel is not just serving me, but is it serving others or is it hurting others? And
Exactly.
and
So
and that
it is,
discernment is huge. Yeah.
sorry, it is that magic moment. We're going to have to take a station break. John and I will return very shortly, so don't go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Just because they're dead doesn't mean they're smart. This discussing information from disembodied spirits is John Burgos. His
Mhm.
website, johnburgos.com. John, what all different forms of information can we get? I mean, everybody has their own style, but for people that are just kind of wanting to get into this and wanting to access their own information, what forms does the guidance come from?
Well, we can talk about the clairs. There's the clairaudience, the claircognizance, the clairvoyance. Again, you can see, hear, feel, um, taste even. And the way that I like to guide people into those forms is like what's coming through in your heart and not to judge in different ways because it can come in multiples. And if we try to put it in a box, it can shorten, it can cut off the communication. So really just being open to an impulse. And the best way to get there is just to be still for a minute. Just slowing down is it's 80% of what's going to facilitate what you receive.
Yeah, there's the real trick, right? Slowing down enough to pay attention to what's going on now.
Mhm.
So within that, are we talking to helping spirits? Are we talking to ghosts? Or what are we talking to? Where are we getting these?
I get a lot of information that comes from lately it's been an ascended master type of energy. So if you think of the energy packets of love and compassion that come from figures like Mother Mary, Jesus, that come from a Melchizedek, again, wise people. The apostles have been coming through to me as a group of 12 that have been sharing. Um, I like calling it technology of how not just to open our hearts, but really follow in discernment in the path of what's helping us as individuals, but also what's helping in the community as far as unity consciousness, how we need to come together as a community in integrity and a mastery that's unfolding for us so that we can really be here to create a society that can
We
thrive
have to
for everyone.
recreate one, don't we?
I think we have a beautiful foundation with a lot of things that have been outdated because they don't serve anymore. And we're recreating based on premises that have been here for thousands of years that we have the opportunity to really level up in ways that we haven't before.
Now, these apostles and the spirits that you've been talking to and getting your information from, one, I assume it's your Catholic background helps to have familiarity with them. But two, are they metaphorical? Are they more of a metaphor than an actual being?
I don't have specific beings that show up in front of me and sit and have conversation with me. There's a lot of clear cognizance that in the way that I interpret information that comes through, whether they're metaphorical or real beings, um, they're both. I would have to say, based on my experience. But I'm aware that regardless if I'm making up the story or if it's sitting right here next to me, that the action that's inspired from that is really calling me to serve others, to open up my heart, to be in love, to be more open, to be um, someone who is here to demonstrate to people how they can overcome their fears and their traumas and live a life of authenticity and greater abundance, and not just abundance of wealth, but an abundance of vitality and vigor that we have available to us.
And we've gotten a long ways off that path, haven't we? It seems like younger and younger people are getting sick, they're getting heavy, you look at them and their eyes are kind of dead, and everybody's looking at their phone. That's a long way from unity consciousness. What is unity consciousness?
Unity's consciousness is when we start coming together again in a way that we're going beyond self-serving energy. It's really about understanding that selflessness is one of the most beautiful things that we can do, not just to inspire ourselves, but to inspire other people around us. What this world, I believe, is ready to awaken to is a new sense of purpose, to awaken in that purpose because there's a passion, because we can see that what we generate from ourselves is actually making an impact. We've gotten too far away from that. We're looking for other things to impact us and then we react. And we have to be at the center and the core of what's driving that momentum forward. So awakening others to that sense of purpose, to unity consciousness, it's paramount right now.
It seems like you're talking about being proactive instead of reactive at the core of things.
100%, yes.
When we have so much distraction and so much media and whatnot telling us life is one way, and if we're going to be successful we have to look like this, or we have to be like that, or we have to acquire this or that. This seems kind of diametrically opposed to that. It's a whole different way of looking at things. How does a person start to make that shift?
Become aware of what you're consuming and why you're consuming it. That's the beginning of the shift.
And so that would be media, that would be food, that would be other
Absolutely.
people's
The
energy
environment
stream.
the environment that we surround ourselves in. Why am I looking at a screen for an hour and a half on Instagram, scrolling through things for entertainment? And what's that doing for me? Am I happier because of it? In the last 3 months that I've been doing it, do I have more connections physically that I have? Do I feel more fulfilled or do I feel checked out? And it's a sober look at it, and it can be very difficult because these things are physically addictive, but we have to choose to find alternatives to fill the void that these algorithms are filling for us because they're aware of how to addict us. It's part of their job. Advertising is part of being aware of how to trigger somebody so that they'll follow us. And then finding those avenues that we really feel are here to help and inspire us, not just to take something away from us. We have to get away from transactional relationships and realize again how we can come into unity consciousness. How what's good for me is good for you. How what's good for you is good for me. And how in that combination, it's good for everybody.
As it occurs to me that as we start to step more out of the being programmed, if you will, and into being focused on being connected with others and really the connection with self, doesn't that kind of start to advertise proof us? In other words, give us some resilience so that we don't have to just kind of blindly follow what we're seeing on media?
Yeah, we're bringing our awareness back to ourselves. And intelligence that lives inside of us is reclaimed. And we become more discerning, not because we're creating words like that's wrong and this is right, but we're aware of our authority about where and how we want to create who we want to be with and how that impacts not just me, but my family, my children, my grandchildren. It's like this is beyond just doing it because we want to set ourselves free, but it has to start there. But the legacy that lives for civilization is huge.
As we go through that introspective process where we start to unplug things that aren't serving us or those around us, Is that journey inward actually the journey towards the information we've been talking about, the esoteric information?
Absolutely is. And it runs together because as we journey inward, we open up to having the mirror of how we're evolving being expressed itself. So we find that we have more nurturing relationships, that we have people that when we didn't feel understood, it's like, wow, I'm finding other people that I can talk to and that I feel understood, like I belong to something. It's so many of us feel like we don't belong to anything because it's been dictated to us how we're supposed to belong. And we need to discover a new way of finding that within ourselves.
We're running out of time in this segment, but there's something I wanted to address that goes right along with this. And that's as we're going through this transition from being driven by outside media and forces to accessing inner wisdom and guidance, is it often that we find that we've surrounded ourselves with people that don't support that and that we kind of have to clear the deck sometimes?
We're often surrounded by the mirror of what we have created. And that sometimes means that the people that we've surrounded ourselves for safety, for codependence, doesn't resonate anymore, that the jobs that we're in are just not tolerable. But what that also does, it does align with the love that's been waiting for us that's just right there at our periphery if only we open up to it. So as we remove the layers of limiting beliefs and replace it with an action taking ability from it, we're able to see what we've been ignoring, what we've been so blind to is the support, the love, the community that is actually there for us. But there is an adjustment period that we have to go through of seeing with new eyes and taking action on that.
Kind of sorting and discerning, if you will. Um, can also the natural world and the animals and the spirits of nature play into this support and alignment?
Oh, nature is fundamental. It's if you live in a concrete city that's not now nature, just put a plant in your house and be with that plant. Of course, our pets and animals in nature is taking a vacation to go somewhere where you can immerse yourself in nature, not immerse yourself in a hotel, but actually put your bare feet on the ground, jump in the water and soak that in. This world is filled with such beauty that wants to see us thrive and support the thrive because as we thrive, the world thrives. Gaia thrives.
Well, it is that time for the commercial break. John and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Is there any hope for the world?
Oh
This is
my.
Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing our ability to impact the future is John Burgos. His website, johnburgos.com. So, John, what is your take on the state of our world right now?
I think we are in such a beautiful place of what's happening. I think a lot, I don't even think I know, Wilda, that what we're seeing in the world is a byproduct of so many people that are awakening in their consciousness and finding their sovereignty and choosing a new direction where we're going in the state of the world. So these things that are bubbling up that the media likes to dramatize and maybe share a lot of truth in it, but a lot of drama that we're seeing and witnessing, it's because those things have to come up and have to come through. They have to be purged and reinterpreted in our own being. And the fact that so much is purging right now is just saying how much is it's an indication of how much light is coming through, how much of the shadow work that we've done individually that it has to be known so that it can transmute into a bigger aspect of itself.
So, we're certainly in chaos. I won't argue chaos at all. All you have to do is look out there um, on all levels. And yet, isn't it alchemical when everything is in chaos and kind of in its constituent parts and really up for grabs? Does that give us a opportunity to recreate what was into something that's more to our liking, more balanced?
It's evolution. It's the world, the earth goes through chaos as it reinvents itself and it sweeps to rebirth something new. We don't have to get to a cataclysm for that to happen. Everything doesn't have to be destroyed for it to be rebuilt back up. There's so much support that we have available to us, and there's a lot of miracles that are coming through. There's one miracle that I love to talk about, which is back in the 70s and the 80s and greenhouse and all the trees being cut down and what's going to happen. So much paper is being wasted and everything's going to be gone. And then someone invented this little gadget that you plug into your computer and it saves millions of pieces of paper on one little plastic drive. That's a huge miracle to come from technology. We become so numb to the miracles, but there's that and so many other things that are advancing, not just in technology, but the technology of the individual. So many more people who are interested in spiritual work, awakening consciousness, creating new platforms to reinterpret what's possible for ourselves and for our children is awakening profoundly around this earth. And so we're in the midst of a great awakening and a renaissance, really, in consciousness.
I won't argue that with you at all. That is my vision. That's my hope. Of course, that's what the show is about too. Is evolving. When when we're working with this and we see all these things falling apart in our world, how can we reframe that to go, oh, we're just clearing the deck a little bit here to make room for something new?
Well, if you have a strong emotional reaction to something that's happening on the other side of the world, ask yourself how that's a reflection of something, a word that's being created inside of you. Where are you judging yourself? Where are you in separation with yourself? Where are you in a fight with your in-laws or with your spouse that there's no resolution? And really use those opportunities as mirrors of what's occurring at home. Because as we heal at home, we create the environment that is the peace that we're looking for on the other side of the world. If you're being called to be an activist for something that's happening that seems like an injustice for you, then your call to action will follow. But if you're just regurgitating at home, if you're suffering and judging what's happening without taking action, it's a clear indication that something wants to be healed inside. And so start there
Buck stops here kind of thing, right?
for sure.
Um, where do you stand on that, as within, so without? In other words, our beliefs, our attitudes creates the reality that we're living in.
I think that's 100% true, but there's context to that as well, because a lot of our beliefs aren't really our beliefs. They're beliefs that we've inherited from society and from our parents. And so there's a re-entraining, a getting back to our own integrity, what that new truth is, sans what social media and the news tell us it's supposed to be true, but really following what's that calling of the heart? What is true for me in my situation with my neighbor, with my coworker, and how can I show up in integrity of what I want and honoring the person that's in front of me? And and I think
So,
that reflection
I'm
of
sorry.
what's happening, what happens within is the reflection of what's happening on the outside.
There's also the genetic piece. And we're learning more and more and more that these attitudes, fears, tendencies are generational. They're passed down through the DNA. And epigenetics is showing that we can turn this off or we can turn it on. We can live with it or not. Do you have any ideas on how to access that ability to shift our epigenetics so that what we're expressing is more true to who we are?
Focused practice. So sitting in silence 5 minutes a day and just breathing without needing a song, music, someone else to guide you, being in silence to attune to what's true for you. And you may have a nervous system response, may have monkey mind going around for a while, but it's really just allowing those energies to run through so that we can find that still point within ourselves. And in that, so much starts to come in. A practice, and Joe Dispenza does this beautifully, his work of really holding a thought for a specific period of time to create new neural pathways. This is something that I've learned 15 years ago and before Joe got popular with it. And it's the most effective tool for overcoming and overriding limiting beliefs. Because what you do is you sit in the thought, I'm more than enough for people who don't feel like enough. I deserve to be a priority. And to hold that thought for long enough, for prolonged periods of time. And I like to have people do it in front of a mirror and go through a process where they're holding that new belief for longer than 20 seconds repeatedly. And if we hold that long enough, what happens is that our neurochemistry starts to kick in and we start forming new neural pathways. This is even beyond just a spiritual connection, but the spiritual connection enforces it. And again, as we hold that new belief system longer and longer, it starts forming our new reality. The old wiring, the imprinting, the DNA programming that we inherited from those beliefs being held so strongly for so long start to have a new tribune to be able to navigate down. And then we have the action taking ability to create something new with that belief.
Do we have the power to change the future into something more desirable?
Absolutely, we have the power to change. It's our action now. It's like we become so focused about changing the future. It's like, what is it that I want to be today? We're delaying what we want today for a hope of something tomorrow because we have so many other distractions to tell us that in order to get something, we have to become something. But if you want freedom, what is it in your life right now that's not setting you free? Where are you chained to your bank account and so afraid to look at it? Where are you so enslaved by a job that you hate that you're not willing to have conversations or to adjust habits out of comfort? Or where are we so afraid to ask for support that we would rather just continue this cycle until we transition, hoping that we'll finally have relief?
What you're describing again, like living today, um, but not being present with today, living today with what we're going to become or achieve tomorrow, takes us out of the present moment. Clearly, very few of us are here. I feel very lonely here sometimes.
Mm,
But isn't the present moment the only place we have power to change?
absolutely. Yeah, it really is. The choice that we make now affects the choice afterwards and afterwards. And really, what are we trying to change? I mean, it's so many people, of course, I want to change this, I want to change that, and that's wonderful. But let's ask first, let's get to the root of it. It's like, why? Why do we want to change? And let's just drop into that. If I'm in an abusive relationship, well, I don't want to suffer the abuse anymore. I want something different. And that makes sense. You know what that impetus is. But for a lot of people, I want change. It's like, but what does change mean to you so that you're more comfortable, so that you have more money in your account, so that you can sit at home and watch Netflix longer? What's the change? What's that purpose? What's that passion that's igniting, that's underneath the surface of that enslavement program that many of us are living in, and really inspire a creative, connected life that at the end of the day, I believe at core, we're all craving that unity back into love, into source, into God, if you want to call it that. But we all want to go back home.
But it looks like we're dancing between inspiration and fear.
Absolutely.
So most of our
Absolutely.
actions and choices and things that we try to change or create, aren't they fear based?
Most of them are. We're survival-based creatures. It's in our DNA, it's in our reptilian mind, and we're evolving. I believe that we are in a place of humanity, that we're going up the rung of evolution, where the awakened consciousness is overriding the reptilian brain, and we're able to create beyond it. And so part of this reprogramming our limiting beliefs, part of connecting the spirit, part of connecting with nature in ceremony. Really, it's a lot of us connect to nature in the in the hopes that we're gonna get something. But what if we approach nature with giving our hearts, giving appreciation, and then be aware that the exchange is going to happen naturally as we're in it rather than
Well,
chasing for something.
it's that time to take a commercial break. Stay with us. John and I will continue by exploring the collective consciousness. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. What? Are we all lizards? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with John Burgos. His website, johnburgos.co. John, what is the reptilian brain?
It's the survival brain. It's the brain that will do anything that it needs to in order to maintain its life. It's the one that seeks food and will do anything to make sure that it is fed under circumstance. It's the one that can become the wild one within, that can destroy if its needs aren't met on the hierarchy level. That's the reptilian brain, and it lives in survival and it lives in fear.
So, what are the other options?
The other option, well, the first option is becoming aware that that's been running the show for a long time. And we know that, but we consider ourselves so advanced at the same time we're so primitive. So it's like, okay, what's running my motivations? And
It kills me. I have to interrupt here. It kills me that there's all these conspiracy people that say the lizards are out to get us, right?
oh
the,
yeah,
the reptiles. Is it the reptile within that we're talking about here?
I think the reptilian without is definitely also a character for the reptilian that we have within, the one that can destroy, the one that's going to manipulate for its own survival, of course.
But it seems like being in the reptilian brain, there you don't really have access to much intellect or compassion or spirituality or any of that.
Well, luckily, that's only a small portion of what's running us because, again, we've evolved in different ways. We've created societies where we know that we have to function together in order to thrive. And that's part of the survival mechanism also. That's why industrial ages have have flourished. That's why we give up so much of our authority to politicians or to famous people to tell us what to do, because somewhere along the line, the brain said, hey, I'm going to preserve energy, which is the brain's function, is to preserve energy so it can function in high states of necessity when the need arises. So let me give up my authority to people who are going to tell me what to do. And then when that doesn't feel right, and when that threatens my survival, my comfort, I'm going to react. I'm going to become violent. I'm going to protest. I'm going to go out and shoot someone. I'm going to create chaos because this innate need, this very primal need, is being triggered. Again, we've gotten really good at the survival aspect and bringing culture to it. But thank goodness we've evolved over the years as well, and we're aware that there's more to it.
It would appear that the reptilian brain, if you will, is a very necessary part of us in order for us to survive. Can't we function out of both the reptilian brain and our more human brain, if you will?
The reptilian brain is evolving, and yes, there's the need for safety. Of course, we're not going to step out on the curb when the bus is coming and getting run over. So part of that survival mechanism is absolutely necessary. The problem is when that survival mode becomes really complicated in the way that it tries to hoard information, hoard money, hoard food storages, hoard attention, and we start getting into individualistic needs rather than, again, the unification of how we can thrive together and when we're supporting each other, knowing that basic needs are going to be taken care, and not only basic needs, that we have the opportunity to thrive when we're functioning as a village.
So aren't we getting down to the fact that the powers that be exploit us through our being stuck in the reptilian brain because we're in fear?
I think the powers that be are a reflection of where we've given up a lot of authority to others. And yeah, there's manipulation that happens through religion, through educational systems, through political systems, through ones that pull the levers, and we set it up that way. Again, look at advertising, look at social media. It's all meant to trigger these primal aspects of us, and it gives us just enough so that we can feel safe, so that we can keep functioning in a way that really serves those mechanisms. We're just
So,
becoming more awake. We're becoming more awake to it. And we're saying, that doesn't work for me anymore because there's a disappropriation of the abundance that is here. And it's disconnected me from the type of connections that I really want to have.
so when you're talking reptilian brain, you don't mean I have to shed some scales here, right? Why do we call it reptilian brain? I mean,
That's a good
why?
question. We can get into it, but the reptilian, it's again, I think it's because it's very survival based, and that's where the origin of that comes from. To get into the full definition, and to be honest with you, I'd have to look it up and give you the context for it.
No problem. So it's that time in the show when I get to ask you, what's your mission?
My mission.
Mm.
My mission is to live the most inspired life that I can in integrity and in connection both to the earth and to this esoteric connection that I have with spirits that are beyond anything that I can explain physically. And by living that life, becoming an example of what's possible for other people and sharing my experiences with others to motivate, to inspire, because if I can do it, anybody else can. And I know that. So I really find that is what drives me on a continuous basis.
What's your vision for the future? Should more of us um, engage in this process whereby we become more unified?
There's freedom that is had, and true freedom where we have the freedom to choose, where as more people are on this path, the capacity for anybody to cause harm when they carry a certain level of consciousness becomes eradicated. When we awaken to our true empathic nature, we can't harm our neighbor, let alone drop a bomb on somebody, let alone have someone starving when we have so much. And so my vision is to everybody to get to a baseline of awareness, and by these tools and this consciousness that we're propagating through our platforms, so that that harm isn't even an option anymore for anybody, that we're really creating from an awareness again of how we are all interconnected, that in order for me to fully heal, that means that my neighbor across the street has to be healed as well.
So, how does one become awakened?
Presence, just choosing first, again, dropping in and going, okay, what's working in my life, and what isn't. And a lot of people are doing it in different ways, but it's really realizing where we're giving our energy to and why. If you're really showing up in a way that you're loving, that there's an integrity that's running through you, that's not based out of codependence, because you can see the preciousness of another human being, then you're on the right path. If you catch yourself in feelings of separation and creating a war inside of yourself and creating a war outside of yourself, then it's something to really take a look at and just come back to the center. It's a process of leaving and coming back, leaving and coming back, because after all, we're human. We're evolving. We're going to judge others, and then we're going to come back to seeing them as just amazing as well. Um, but knowing that we're attuning and we're acclimating into another level of consciousness, and the judgment and the separation, our capacity for that is becoming less. And so again, just paying attention to where that separation
Isn't
exists.
isn't every time we slip out and then pull ourselves back to center and slip out and pull ourselves back to center, isn't that kind of setting up a resonance for other people that are kind of maybe out, but then we're pulling back, and that's the path that we're making?
And that's becoming an example of what's possible.
Mm.
Mhm.
So we're just about out of time altogether, John.
Mhm.
What would you say is the most important change that we can make as individuals that will impact our world today?
Really choosing to take a heartfelt look at ourselves and just really embrace ourselves with compassion for wherever it is that we think we may fall short or things aren't good enough, and just realizing that most of that we have learned that it's not really who we are. And so we can just begin there. So much can start shifting, and then opening ourselves up to a world beyond these blinders that we have on, knowing that we're so much more connected to each other and to worlds unseen as well that are here to support us, and to just be curious about what may be possible in that will open up doorways of creativity and inspiration that are going to have you really move in a direction that you can't help but to continue to show up for yourself in the most loving and authentic way.
It sounds like you're talking about authenticity, finding who we really are.
Mhm. Discovering that and being in awe of that. It's not a mission, but it's really a journey. And to really discover the beauty that lives inside of you that you already are, rather than all the things that we would put up that would tell us otherwise. That's the journey that's leading us home.
Leading us home. Well, it's about time for us to bring this to a close. But thank you so much, John, for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I love all your questions and the inspiration that they provide.
Thank you. Our guest this hour has been John Burgos. John is an ascension guide and public speaker. To find out more about John and all he has to offer, visit his website, johnburgos.co. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But please, don't forget to join me right here next time as this mission will continue, bringing you information, resources, and support to our evolving world.